welcome back, fellow 3D printing and CAD enthusiasts. Today, we're gonna cover everything that you need to know about circular patterns, linear patterns, as well as slicing objects so that you can ideally position them when 3D printing. So let's jump right into it. My name's Eddie, and I appreciate you guys joining in. So what we'll do is we'll actually start with linear patterns first. So let me go ahead and hide these objects, which you can achieve with Control H. By the way, if you need any of the shortcuts, I put a place on my website. It's promoambitions.com/Tinkercad, and it has all the shortcut keys that you can handle, as well as a list of all the videos that you can easily access. We're currently filming part 5, that's why it's not up yet. Okay, so to get right into it, let's drag out a cone. So let's drag out a cone, position it anywhere, and I'll remind you how to create a linear pattern using duplicate. So if you duplicate an object, you can achieve it by Control D or simply clicking on this icon here. Then we can shift drag it out. And when we shift click and drag it out, we can actually specify exactly how far away we would desire it to be. So let's say 30. And what we can do now is without clicking away. Now it's very important when you create a linear pattern to not click away from the object that you dragged out, otherwise it won't work. So if we click duplicate, we'll see that a linear pattern occurs because Tinkercad remembered how we repositioned the original duplicated item. So to show you what I mean by it won't work if we click away, if I duplicate this and then I drag it out and then I click away and then I click on it and try to duplicate it, it doesn't recall the movement, and you see it just keeps duplicating this. So that's why it's very important to not click away. Now let me show you some really cool things that you could do. You can actually duplicate an object and reposition it any which way you desire. So you can shift it over here, we can even move it up a bit, and then we can flip it. So let's flip it as well. And we can achieve that by clicking on the flip tool or the shortcut key M, and then choosing the desired axis we would like to flip it. So what happens if we duplicate this item here? What's going to happen is it's going to start creating a linear pattern this way because it's taking into account how it shifted and how it rotated. So let's check it out and you can visually see what I mean. Pretty cool, right? So the interesting thing is that you can also create patterns going directly up. So for instance, if we were to duplicate this item, shift drag it out and then move it up just a bit so that they're still touching. If we go ahead and duplicate it, it will actually start creating it in the z-axis as well, so going up, which means you can create some really cool intricate designs. For instance, this could be on the tail of an alligator. It will represent the spikes that alligators tend to have on their tails. So let's now cover circular patterns and see how we can apply this duplicate and some of the concepts we just learned to circular patterns. So let's unhide what we had hidden, and this is basically, I just very quickly replicated what a clock would look like without the numerical values. Now what I'm gonna do for the purpose of this exercise is I would like to take a sphere and I would like to place this sphere in every designated spot that you would have a numerical value. So we're going to have 12 spheres equally spaced out. And let's see how we can achieve this. There's a few ways. So let's first do this. Let's resize this sphere to make it a little bit smaller. 12 by 12 would be more of an ideal. And we need to change the height as well to 12. Okay, so we have a sphere here, and let's click on the top view so we can be working and placing this where regularly the number 3 would be. So what we can then do is duplicate this sphere and shift drag it to the position where the 9 on the clock would usually be. So if this was a clock, we would go 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So right now we have the 3 and the 9. Now what we can do is we can group these objects together by shift clicking and selecting on both spheres and clicking group. Now that they're grouped, what we can do is we can align it. So first let's make sure that this and the circle, that it's directly in the center of the circle. So if we click on these two spheres, and we only need to click once because they are grouped together, and then we shift click on the outside of the clock, we now have the option to align. As you can see, whenever you do operations, Tinkercad will tell you what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do by showing you the icons as black versus gray. We can't unhide it because these aren't hidden, so that's why this option is not available. Okay, so let's go and align these, and if we recall correctly, we have to align in center and center, and now these spheres are perfectly aligned. There's equal space here and equal space here. So now that we've done that, we can click away, knowing that they're perfectly aligned. And now we're gonna simply click on it. We're gonna duplicate it. We now want to rotate them so that they're in the position where the number 4 and the number 10 would be. And how do we achieve this? We have 12 numbers, so we need to divide 360 by 12 because the circle is 360 degrees, 12 numbers, and that gives us 30. So we want to rotate this 30 degrees, and hopefully we will get it in the position that we desire. Let's see if we're correct. So duplicate, and then when we click on the rotate, we can actually tell it exactly how much we want it to rotate. So let's type in 30 and see what happens. Now, if I'm correct, this is now positioned where the 4 and the 10 would normally be on a clock. Now, we don't have to repeat this. All we have to do is now click duplicate again, and it will now duplicate it, so it'll be in the 11 o'clock and the 5 o'clock. Duplicate again, we get 12 and 6. Duplicate again, we get 1 and 7. Duplicate again, we get 2, 8. Now we have a perfectly built out clock. Now, let's say we didn't know exactly the spacing and the degrees, and it wasn't as important to us because we weren't working with something as precise as a clock. Well, we can handle it a slightly different way. Let's select this, and let's now hide these objects. So let's group them, so it's 1 clock, and let's press Control H to hide it. Okay, and now you see this is now black light bulb because we can technically unhide. Let's hide it again, Control H. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a circular pattern, but in a slightly different way. So let's take this box and let's resize it for the purpose of what I'm about to show you. So let's say 2, and with these we're gonna stretch it out by, let's make it 2 times. So let's do something like this. So if I wanted to create a perfect circle out of this, there's a different way I can achieve it by duplicating it and simply moving it and then rotating it and positioning it so it's relatively touching. Yeah, it looks alright. So, okay, now that we've done that, if we click duplicate and we keep doing it, it will go all the way around and create a nice looking circle. Now, this is nice especially because now we can group it, and we can go ahead and resize it to get the circle as big or as small as we want. Now again, this is just working on one plane. I'm going to show you something that I think you'll find pretty cool. We're going to create a circular staircase. So if we get rid of that last one here, and we click here and duplicate it, what we can actually do is raise it up, and then we can move it over, and then rotate it. So we can align it so it starts to shift. So theoretically, if we now duplicate it, it will start creating a staircase. Again, you can duplicate, Control D, or just keep clicking duplicate. And we were correct. If we keep doing it, we are building a stairway to heaven. And the nice thing is, see if I'm correct, this should still be a circle. So if we look at it from the top view, you can see that it's pretty much a circle. Why this is sticking out is because we're looking at it in perspective. And if we switch to orthographic, you'll see that it's a perfect circle. And if you don't recall the difference between perspective and orthographic, watch part 1 of this tutorial series and it will surely refresh your mind. And this is how you achieve a circular pattern and the many things that you could do with it. Okay, so now that we've discussed linear patterns and circular patterns, I want to take a second to discuss slicing, and I'll explain why we need to do this in a second. So let's say let's select characters, and let's select this astrobot right here. So let's say we have this in our design, but for some reason this is very tall and our 3D printer can't handle such a tall object or a wide object or a long object, and so we want to split it into 2 pieces and then 3D print them. Now, if you know anything about 3D printing, it's always helpful to have a flat section so that you can build off of that section. So what we're going to do is we're going to effectively cut this in half and then position it so that both pieces are on the work plane. And what this would do theoretically is after you print it, you can technically glue them together. So let me show you exactly what I'm talking about because I may not have done a great job. So the first thing we need to do is drag out our ruler tool and see exactly how tall this astrobot is. We can see here that he's 85.48 millimeters tall. We can change this to 90 to make our lives a little bit easier. So if we change it to 90, we can now drag out, let's go back to basic shapes, and we're going to drag out this cylinder that is a hole. So it already cuts a hole. You can also achieve it by dragging a regular cylinder So for instance, drag a regular cylinder and turn that cylinder into a hole. But Tinkercad has a few shortcuts for us, and it already has a few objects that are holes. So what we do here, since we know this is 90, let's say we want to split it in half. We would simply change the height of this cylinder to 45. And then we want to encompass this astrobot in the cylinder. So we want to ensure that the cylinder is big enough. So we will change dimensions to 100 by 100. And we'll move it over so it's relatively in the center. We want to make sure it's encompassing. It is. So now that we've done that, we want to create an identical hole shape, but we want to now it so that it's on top of it. So we basically want to stack this whole shape and have two of them perfectly covering the astrobot. How do we achieve it? Well, we can also use it. And when we go to our new object, we can actually move it up. And you'll see, if you recall from one of the videos, the green designated ruler measures how far away the object is from the work. So we can change this to 45 because we know that this is 45 inches tall. It's half of 90 with the astrobot. And now we've perfectly covered the astrobot in hole-shaped center. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and duplicate this once more. So if we click on it, duplicate it, and then we want to shift drag it so it's side by side. So let's see here. Okay. Sometimes it's easier to use the keypad. So if you have the up, down, left, right arrow on your keyboard, sometimes it's easier. So now that we have this, we see that they're side by side. All we're going to do is we're going to delete the top cylinder on one of them. So grab this top cylinder, we'll delete it. We're going to delete the bottom cylinder on the other one. And now we simply group together. So we group this astrobot together with the hole, and it will perfectly cut it in half. And we group this astrobot with the hole shape, and it will also perfectly cut it in half. Once we've achieved that, if you recall, there's a keyboard shortcut D, which will make, if you select any item that's above the work, you click D, it brings it right back down. So it's perfectly aligned with working. So this shape we can go ahead and print. However, this we want to rotate. So if we click and we go to rotate, we rotate it exactly 180 degrees, and we'll see that it's also aligned to working. If we're not sure, we raise it above, click on it, D, it's perfectly aligned to working. Why this is helpful is because if this object was too tall to 3D print, you can now 3D print it like this. When it comes out, you can simply flip it, glue it together, no difference. And because it's perfectly flat, it's very, very easy to do. And this is how you slice objects in Tinkercad. And with this, we've essentially covered all the advanced and simple stuff that you could do with the Tinkercad platform. Now, I'm going to create one more video to explain import, export, if you want to send to someone else, if you want to collaborate on a design with someone else. And this is quite important. It could be a bit of a dull video, but it'll teach you how to import certain STL shapes so that you can 3D print things. You can also import pictures that you can extrude out and turn into 3D shapes. So overall, Tinkercad has a lot of possibilities, and although we've covered a lot of the concepts and the basic concepts, your creativity can now take over, and you can really design some very intricate and advanced objects. Even though the operation in the CAD might be simple, if you use your imagination, you can really start combining all the different techniques and concepts and create very advanced stuff which you and others will be impressed by. And if you do that, please do share in the comment section and let me know if I left something out, if I was wrong about something. Tinkercad often changes, so if you notice something that no longer applies to what I was teaching, please do mention it. I, just like you, am always trying to learn, and I always appreciate feedback. I really, really appreciate the fact that you guys watch this. If you've watched all of the other 4 videos as well, I commend you. It's not easy. I know some of this is mundane, but I do appreciate you watching it. If you can, please do like it, please do share it, please comment on it, and I'll try to put out more tutorials. I will definitely put out the tutorial on the importing, exporting, sending to, as well as how to share a design. So thanks again for watching, and if you need any of the shortcuts, you can navigate back to my website, which will have all the Tinkercad tutorials and all of the keyboard shortcuts very organized and listed for you so that you can easily save some time by working with. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.